Good morning. Welcome to Sips of Sanity. I'm Karen.
Good morning. I'm Kelly. We're on day 2, and this is super exciting today. We are filming with Ed Regan, and we're starting to bring visual to our podcast so that we can have more interaction with the audience, have a little bit more fun, show you how it's filmed, how it's recorded, and that it's a really relaxed conversation. We've said from the beginning, Coffee with the Sarlos and Sips of Sanity was about inviting you guys into our living room, and now we get to do that.
Yeah.
So let's continue. We are talking about people pleasing this month. We're in the month of July, day 2, and we did the first show on identifying what kind of people pleaser you are.
Yeah. And I think if you went through that show and you identified as a people pleaser, you might be feeling a crapload of shame today. So first of all, we want to really identify that that would be a normal reaction.
Yeah.
That you can feel full of shame that you've just discovered that you lack integrity in your life. When your whole intention all along, perhaps as a people pleaser, and I say perhaps because there's different types of people pleasers, could be that you think, wow, I just thought I was loving people. I thought I was a good mom. I thought I was a good dad. I thought I was a really good employee. So I really don't understand why I'm getting shit for this. Or why I'm feeling so bad about it, and now I'm finding out I don't even have any integrity. That's what you're telling me. Well, yes, you do lack integrity if you're people pleasing. That's true. So, and that needs to be identified so that you can accept it. And I want to say, if you feel your shame, sit in that for a few seconds and don't stay there too long, because there's a toolkit out there. So we don't want you to sit in your shame, but we do want to acknowledge that you felt it.
And today's show is addressing the shame in a way that helps you understand where the behaviors come from.
Right. So
that instead of deciding or accepting a belief system that this is who you are, you're understanding how you got conditioned into this in the first place.
Absolutely.
And it's always a combination of different factors.
Right.
So let's break down the factors for them so they can start to evaluate where this stems from.
Okay. So one of the first ones that just comes to me, Kelly, is biological. And that's because, to begin with, a great deal, I would say at least in the history of this planet, people pleasing was really dominant amongst females. And biologically, because we are hardwired, because we are the ones that carry the babies.
To nurture.
That's right. So we really are birthed to be nurturers. And nurturers, by very definition, are people that can be people pleasers, but you have to be able to understand when you get the toolkit that it's okay to get boundaries. It's okay to say no. It's okay to do the other things that are going to come.
And that great nurturing can look like good boundaries.
That's correct. And that self-nurturing is not selfishness. That there are differences in those words. And some people make those words one and the same. And that's not the way that they truly are. So biologically, that's one of the key reasons, or one of the first reasons I think so many people think, but this came so naturally to me. This is just who I am. I get so happy when I give to people. We don't want to take the giving away and the joy away. We want it to have boundaries, and we want it to be healthy for people.
So you can be replenished.
Yeah. And I think too, we have to do some of that nurturance and have that still go from generation to generation, because it's part of why our species reproduces.
Affection.
Yes.
Care.
That's right.
Connection.
Yeah.
But it has to be authentic. That's
the point. We're going to keep coming back to authenticity and integrity over and over again. So if somebody thinks, I'm so confused about this people-pleasing stuff, and then this idea that there's healthy people-pleasing and unhealthy people-pleasing, if that's how you want to word those two things, integrity is the key definition, or the key word that sits between the two. Reason number 2, Kelly, women are watching all over movies and TVs to be people pleasers, and that's how they're going to get ahead, or that's how they're going to get what they want. And I think too, unfortunately now, I think some men are seeing the very same things in movies, and what people show us, say, how do you say that? Music. That sometimes it's like men are being told, if she breaks your heart, she's worth fighting for. And it's like, what a screwed up message, because then it tells him, go out and people please her, and that's how you're going to get her back. That's crazy messaging.
Right.
But both men and women now are getting those messages through things like TV and movies and music, advertisements, all kinds of things, where those things are not healthy. And we have to be able to sit there and say, that's just music. That's just TV. That is not my reality.
Well, they're selling something.
Right.
I really loved one of the points that Beverly Angel brought up in the show when she was on with us, that throughout history, we were taught by society that if you were a timid female, that you'd be taken care of, that if you were oblivious or naive, people would care for you. And I found that fascinating because you see it in more medieval shows, let's say. Back in an olden time, right? Men would lay their jackets down for women and all these cliched things about chivalry, right? And we're going to blur some lines here, but that's not the way it is anymore. Women aren't intuitively protected by men. They don't seem to have that instinct anymore. And certainly women don't seem to have that instinct for one another. So society used to train us to be people pleasers because we could afford to be kind and naive. Things were just taken care of. And now that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm. And we have to grow with that. We have to learn with that. That's why education is so important. And without it, you stay stuck. You're one of the ones that stay stuck in those old patterns.
Uneducated.
And everyone else around you is growing and moving forward, and you're not. And that's going to become evident to you. That's why the question at the beginning in the first show, are you truly happy, matters. That question really is a deep, deep question. It's not, am I happy about my things? It's, am I truly happy about what I feel, about the boundaries that I set?
I think a really neat question to follow what you're saying is, do I feel safe? Because if you can evaluate your safety level or perceived safety level, then if you can't really answer yes to that, that means there's an inconsistency in the behavior of the people that you're around.
What a brilliant question for a work environment.
And if I have to constantly people please and switch to whatever reality that you're in to make sure I get what I want to feel safe, that's a constant state of work. That's a constant state of anxiety as well.
Well, the question about safety in a work environment might mean that it's time to do a resume. It might mean that it's time to make a change or even just to get ready for one. It means that we might have to take a different action today than we have every other day. And that requires a certain amount of energy. But the kicker here, Kelly, is that you have a choice. We talk about this often in the podcast.
Oh, yes.
You're going to have so much energy in your life and you have to use it. We all have to use energy. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to stay stuck in these patterns of people pleasing? Or am I actually going to make a change into a new healthy pattern? So unhealthy patterns, healthy patterns.
Well, and if we're talking about society feeding into this idea of people pleasing is a good thing, am I going to stay stuck in the job with the environment that perpetuates me as a people pleaser? So let's touch on the last one then.
Well, there's 4. The third one is family. It's watching your parents. It's watching grandparents and the people who raise you, and watching their behaviors and then deciding if you're going to do the people pleasing too, or if you just do it because it's what you got raised to do. Remember going back to what we said earlier about identifying or a mom or one parent forcing you into people pleasing roles to keep the other parent out of the bad mood, away from the bottle of alcohol, away from the stick that hits you or whatever it is that they're doing. So, we want, the dad or mom to come home and be happy. So in order to keep them happy or non-violent or whatever it is, non-confrontational, non-critical, whatever those words are and those actions are, we get trained to stay out of their way. And that's another form of people pleasing. We get trained not to know our needs, not to meet our needs,
not to be seen, valued, not to be heard. Yeah, we become invisible in a very big sense.
Absolutely. So we keep diminishing ourselves. And that's one of the things that people pleasers suffer with is a lack of self-identity. And so they can be the exact opposite sometimes when they grow up, and where they constantly seek it by people pleasing to an extreme level. So we have to go back and look at what happened in our family units. So when you think about your mom and your dad or your grandmother, or anybody that raised you, aunts, uncles, it doesn't matter. Whatever your family looked like, you have to sit back and be able to say, how did I come to make these decisions in life?
Mm-hmm.
And boy, if you have alcoholism or abuse in your family on any level, you suffer from people pleasing.
Mm-hmm. I think too, what I love about a lot of the personal sessions that we do is being able to go back into that trigger moment that spiraled everything. So if it was just one sentence that a grandmother said to us of, oh, you're so quiet, you're such a good girl, and we completely internalize that to be okay, to be a good girl is to be quiet, then that's what I'll be in social situations. That's what I'll be in relationships. That's what I'll be at the dinner table. And it was just one moment that sat on a cellular level with us that we just spilled over into our whole lives.
Oh, well, I learned it wasn't just to be silent. It was to be the doer. It was to be the fixer. I remember growing up with piles of parties in our home, and the children in the house being the ones that cleaned, picked up the ashtrays and emptied them while people were enjoying themselves, went into the fridge and make sure that you've refilled pickle trays, and you did things so that the adults could be enjoying themselves at the party. And I know that is one of the things that I struggle with as an adult, is that when I'm in a social situation, I want to get up and be the one that helps the waitress pick things up, or the server.
Yeah.
I want to be the one that gets up and pays the bill first. I want to jump out of my seat.
I can feel your anxiousness discussing this.
Yes. And I have such a hard time having to sit down, and hear my words, having to sit down with my friends or my own family, because my training says get up and serve. And yet I need to sit there consciously, relax my bones, become a good listener, be content, enjoy the person's company and their energy. And I have anxiety.
Yeah,
so there's
about
a moment,
not rushing.
Yeah. So people pleasers, and this is why we don't want to deal with our own shit, is because we're going to have anxious, anxiety-filled moments breaking out of the pattern. But oh my Lord, it's worth it.
Okay, so let's now, truthfully, because I can't read your paper upside down, let's go to the fourth and final.
Well, you touched on it, Kelly. It came in with the familial one, and it's experiential. And that means where you got your first trigger in childhood. So we actually did those two together for people today.
Perfect.
You
but
did it.
You are breaking them down, and that's important for people to know terminology, because terminology empowers us.
Yes, and that's hopefully what people are going to do. We want them to leave here, go out and Google all of those words, and Google Beverly and Gel, and go listen to the other podcasts, so that if you're a people pleaser and you think, well, now I know it, but now what the hell do I do about it? And if I have anxiety even trying to cope with it, I'm going to go back into my shutdown mode. And that's what happens when we're raised to be people pleasers. As soon as you go into your level of anxiety, you go into shutdown. But that's what you got trained to do. And now you need to know it. So you can observe that part of yourself and go, that is not going to be the end of the day.
No, because the first step that you can take is just in educating yourself. And I think that's actually the best step that you can make. Because if you are triggered to be quiet and unseen, you can go read your book. You can go listen to a podcast and make it just silent steps that you're aware of before you're ready to really implement. And that's okay.
Good. I like that.
Perfect. So if you have questions or comments about today's show, you can email us at info@bysarlo.com. Otherwise, we will be back tomorrow morning.